In this episode, we talk with Scott Turman, CEO of BrightRay Publishing, and a serial entrepreneur focused on software and business publishing. We discuss how he uses AI to scale research, outreach, and PR, while choosing to keep book writing fully human. Scott shares why digital channels are becoming saturated, how that affects trust, and why he is returning to direct, more personal methods to stand out. All right, today we have with us Scott Turman. He's the CEO of BrightRay Publishing. Welcome to the show, Scott.
Thank you for having me.
So, Scott, let's just start with a little bit of your background on yourself and your company, and then we'll jump in.
So my name is Scott Turman. I'm kind of a serial entrepreneur, have been for a while, at least 20 years. My last 20 years have been starting companies, getting them running, and then going to the next one and the next one, the next one. Years ago, I was just consulting for software. We would just build software, I was kind of a special teams guy that was really someone you would bring in if things were just not working, or you just couldn't get it to scale, or you couldn't get your team working. You had your lead programmer was bullshitting you and you needed someone to come in there and tell them they were stupid or not right or incorrect or whatever. I was typically, I played the bad guy in a lot of those kind of consulting situations. And then, I started a software company 16 years ago, and that's kind of been paying the bills ever since.
Got it. And so tell me a little bit about BrightRay.
So I own the trademark BrightRay. So everything I do is BrightRay this, BrightRay that, right? It's every variation. It's A, lazy, I guess a little lazy. B, branding can be difficult to get right the first time. So we've just been kind of leaning on that BrightRay orange for quite some time. My software company, we build these giant kind of very dangerous systems for very dangerous kind of data, PHI type data for insurance companies and, I don't know, large Fortune 100 kind of companies like that. And then BrightRay Publishing, we started during COVID. And it was one of those things where, I'm like, I've been trying to write a book about, it's kind of like thumbing my nose at the recruiting industry for years, and I just couldn't get it out. And then one of my close friends' daughter helped me kind of work out this kind of, what is it, necessarily ghostwriting so much, it was like kind of team writing, where she would just interview me, and then I would and then at the end she would basically write the book. We'd publish it, and I was able to get it out. And then a couple of weeks later I had once we published it, it was like, oh my God, I finally did it. And we realized there was a business here. I had a buddy over at he's a professor of entrepreneurship at Rice University. He's like, how'd you do that? And I told him, and then he's like, could you do it for me? And then we haven't looked back. I guess we're up to 15 employees now, a bunch of writers, editors, and on and on and on.
Got it. So where would you say for BrightRay Publishing specifically, like where are you in your like AI journey? Are you deep into it? Are you still, testing the waters? Like, where are you at?
It's funny for both BrightRays, both the consulting side and the publishing side. On the consulting side, we're leaning heavily into these kind of APIs, but really, I can't go in too much into it, but it's really kind of this large data set kind of scaled version of usage. That's really all I can say, to be honest with you. the NDAs I have, but the publishing side, it really started out as I was primarily using it with the marketing side of our company, and I was really using it to do deep research into people. So when I would go, also for my podcast, right, I also go use it to go do really deep research into who they were, what was a good angle, that I could actually, when talking on the podcast, what would be good questions. And it would just, it was just worked, right? Especially if you use this kind of, as I guess it's ChatGPT's OpenAI is the project side, right? Where you can go create this, it's just bolt-on RAG, right? It's just, here's all these pre-assumptions. Here's just go look at this document and filter your assumptions and, and how you respond, through this giant document, which is, I have a podcast, I have this, I like to ask these questions. Based on this person and this research and this data, go give me a list of 20 questions that would make this more interesting. In terms of how we use it physically day to day, I have definitely done some real deep development into these kind of dossier generators, right? Where it spins up 5, 6, 7 agents, takes what, you give it the bare minimum, Hunter Jensen, here's your LinkedIn profile, here's your whatever, and then it will go out and spend 30 minutes finding every single nook and cranny that it can figure out on you. And now I have a really good, and then it creates that kind of dossier. And then however I speak to you in terms of I'm trying to make you a client or I'm trying to get you as a prospect, right? All my emails are filtered through that dossier on you. Whether it's cold, whether it's call, whether I send you a book through the mail, however I do it, I'm doing it through that dossier. And I've, kind of written a lot of software around that, kind of leans on that.
Now, before, large language models and all the rest of it, were you doing that work by hand, or were you just not doing that work?
No, we were, but it was farmed out to researchers, either in the Philippines or, someone I could get, for 15, $12 an hour, right? Because it is mind-numbing work. It's mind-numbing. You're like, Hunter Jensen. Oh, is it the Hunter Jensen who won the 1991, Olympics, or was it like there's all this like trying to figure out, who the real Hunter Jensen is, and you're like, oh, well, he's from Cincinnati or whatever, right? And you're like, okay, so it's Hunter Jensen, Cincinnati. This is horrible amount of back and forth. And now and it was really onesie twosies, but now I can scale it. Now I can use products like N8N. And for those of you who don't know, N8N is this kind of thing, this workflow management type software, but you can hit LLMs and scale it. So I can give you a nice giant Google sheet, first name, last name, LinkedIn profile, and I can have N8N run through each one and grab your name, grab your company, and actually go out to Gemini or ChatGPT or whatever your flavor is, and actually go generate interesting content based on that dossier or whatever. And it scales. I could do thousands a day if I wanted to, in terms of like generating that figure that outreach out. And that has really changed kind of the way that we, you add that, and then on top of that, you send them a book, right? Or one of my books, right? In terms of we're trying to make them into or a client. And it's been going gangbusters like that.
Yeah. I mean, do you think that your business could have scaled without something like that? I mean, it seems like this is a pretty critical piece of the overall operation to be able to scale it instead of not just blocking and tackling with everybody. Like would it have worked at this scale if there were no large language models?
Yeah, but it would probably take a team of 5 or 6, right? In order to, what I do, what I have automated now. I mean, I used to have a bunch of other people that had to go do the heavy lifting in HubSpot, right? Have to go annotate all those people on HubSpot. But no, but the problem though is that now that this is, a lot of people are scaling this for their marketing, I don't trust anything I see or hear. So I hear someone who genuinely reached out to me the other day, genuinely listened to my podcast, and I didn't trust what the email said. It was really just like 3 paragraphs or a paragraph. And I just immediately assumed it was generated. It wasn't. It was real. So now I'm starting to get to a spot where, if everybody is special, no one is, a la, Incredibles, right? Where everybody's super, no one's super. I feel like we're kind of dipping in marketing wise where everybody's getting the kung fu, and it's starting to, now no one trusts anything they see as a result.
Yeah. It's interesting, right? Like it used to be that if you could scale out an operation that wrote really well-targeted emails that really resonated with the recipients, you got a really high response rate. I get those all day now. I get people telling me all my background and when the last thing I posted on LinkedIn was, and the last podcast I recorded, and all the rest of it, and we're CEOs. So we get tons and tons of inbound, of outbound kind of cold stuff. And it's like, are we going to reach a point where, is it just because we're early adopters and it works for a while and then it's going to stop working because everybody's doing it? I mean, we've got platforms like Instantly and others that are like they're democratizing this, right? And making it available for everyone. So what are we going to do when a really well personalized message isn't going to work?
So I personally love it when all the channels are clogged, because I have other ways around all that, right? Like, I mean, it's, it's funny. So my dad had a software company, but it was really like finance related software company when I was a kid, right? And he had a commodities trading company, a couple different things. And the vast majority of his business came through mail for software because there was no internet back then, right? So if you wanted to install his fancy schmancy, very, very early adopted rudimentary neural network, right? He would actually, that was built in C, actually C++. It would actually take data down. It would actually connect to a dial-up, go grab data for that day, right? And then go run analysis on it. He would send out 1,000 like letters, like actually like licked, like open up a letter, pitch letter, right? And if he sent out 1,000 and it was a good month, he would make $50,000 in sales, right? So that was the environment that I grew up in, was really this direct marketing, like send a letter, make a phone call, close the deal, and this is all around technology. So now fast forward now, all the things are clogged. Awesome. Let's go back to mail. Right. So it's but still you're going to use generative AI, but just in a kind of different way, a much briefer kind of way. Right. So yeah, everything's getting clogged all the time. LinkedIn is a mess, right? Messaging is garbage, right? Email is just, everybody's getting through now with really, really customized, plausible sounding pitches, right? So we're running out of, phones, and Google is denying anybody to call outbound anymore. So you're not be able to scale that out. All the channels are getting clogged, which is awesome. Because for me, because I don't care. I'll go another way and I'll just use it a different way.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like, part of this has to do with COVID, in that when COVID started, a lot of in-person events stopped for a long time. Some of them never came back. And so all the marketing dollars that were allocated for conferences and in-person events and all the rest of it, it all went digital, right? And LinkedIn became this like wasteland of just like cold messaging and all the rest of it. And then came ChatGPT and the LLMs, which made it really easy for people to write excellent, outbound messaging. And so it got very clogged with pretty good messaging and became very hard to stand out. And, all of that speaks to kind of a common theme that I'm seeing right now, is that it's incumbent upon us as leaders of business to innovate now. Like, if we, like, things are changing so fast and all this technology is like democratizing all these processes, we have to stay ahead, or we're just gonna get stuck with everybody else, right? And so, like, even if maybe you've been running the same kind of business model for 5 or 10 years and it's been working well, that's gonna stop pretty soon if you don't start to innovate. Like, go back to direct mail or ship somebody a book, right? When you're thinking about, okay, well, what does like the publishing world look like a year from now, or 2 or 3? I never ask more than 3 because we could be living on the moon in 4 years. But like, how do you think it's going to change? Let's just call it in the next year. And do you have plans to like address those changes? Are we going to let it happen to us, or are we going to proactively like get ahead of this stuff?
So I heard a rumor there was someone with a laptop at OpenAI that had a sticker on it that said this is the last normal year. And I think what they were saying is that this is the beginning of the beginning, right? And now we're a handful of years into this. Not many, by the way. I think it's only 2. Right? Feels like it's been going on for 10, but it's only 2-ish, right? No, Raleigh, maybe the last year people have actually started to get on board. And everybody in every business in every C-level suite, every conference room is like, what are we doing about AI, right? And I don't think anybody really had an answer. And they still don't, because even if you have the kung fu and how do you scale it? Great, you've got my solution. We talked about this a couple of weeks ago. Oh, my solution was I got everybody an open AI license. Well done, right? Congratulations. Now, how does that really help your business? And it really, really doesn't, right? The way that I'm combating this is I'm going the other way. if you write content, if you write books, right? We're in the business of writing business books. If you use AI, which is a silly word, LLM, right, to create content, it is against my policy because I believe that writing is an art, right? When it comes to actually our books, right? You can use it to find, errors in grammar and turn of phrases, but you cannot use LLM to generate, actual, human the human connection, the actual base content for books. It's in my
Mhm.
policy. It's everywhere. We're going the exact opposite way. And when you read a paragraph, that is if we still can read in 2 years because it feels like it's like where it's going down the toilet in terms of reading. When you read something that's good, it's really obvious. LLM isn't really good at holding narratives. It doesn't. It's
Mhm.
just kind of predicting the next word. And I know we've been hearing that for years, but it really is not really putting out awesome stuff, kind of long form, right? Not yet, anyway. And maybe it never will. So we're going the opposite direction. I'm fighting it, right? But 2 or 3 years from now, I'm hoping we'll be in that people will be craving real content, real, human connection, and that's what I'm fighting against. That's how I'm going to change. Is I'm going to go the opposite direction.
Yeah. I mean, what I'm hearing there is authenticity, right? We are becoming increasingly dubious of any written content put in front of us that, you know, it is slop a lot of times already, right? AI slop. I get it all the time. And so by kind of going in the other direction, and focusing on authenticity, hopefully, at least for a while, we can differentiate between what LLMs are putting out. But like, how long do we have for that? What is that? Another
Yeah.
couple
So
of years, you know?
if you go through my LinkedIn, and I think LinkedIn is a wasteland right now, but if you go through my LinkedIn, right, and it's me posting really annoying quip stuff, right? So when someone answers me with this long form content, I'll run it through GPT-0. I'll know it's 100% AI generated, and I'll always reply back with, "Say hello to ChatGPT for me." Right? This is bullshit. This is a bullshit
Mhm,
response. You didn't write this. You don't feel this way. This is some AI automation, right? Just call everybody out on it. You really, until we just kind of take a stand a little bit, right? When you read something, you know it's not them. You just know.
mhm,
I can see it a mile away for now, right?
mhm,
Until we get so yeah, I mean, all my stuff is a bunch of memes of like, oh, it's such great content you built there or you wrote there. I'm sure you really feel that way, but they don't because they didn't write it, and the
right.
authenticity is obvious from a mile away, or the lack of, I should say.
Yeah. So, kind of a point of order question, really, or a practical one, let's say. So, that's your policy. Would you ever know, other than like your own gut, if your writers were using a large language model for base content? Like,
So
is there any way to enforce or
yeah,
to
yeah,
at
there
least
is.
check? Let's
The
hear about it.
GPT-0 is pretty good. We use a lot of their APIs and a lot of their in documents filtering, right? So at
Mhm,
every level, when an editor gets it, the first thing they do is run the whole thing through, right? And if it's more than 15%, we start drilling in to go figure out because a lot of times we'll write part of the book, we'll send it back to the actual author, acting as the writing team. They'll send it back to us. We'll run that through GPT. They're like, nope, that was written by ChatGPT. It can't be used. And by the way, Amazon will bad things happen to you if you try to publish a all AI generated book on Amazon. You know,
really? Like, they won't let
yeah,
it they won't host
it's
it?
against their policy. It's against their policy. And then there's a world where they start pulling these things because right now when you think about from their perspective, if anybody could just go output, like I could just go take, I don't know, the 4-hour work week and just put it through ChatGPT and republish it as a 2-hour work week, right?
Mhm,
Right? They're really destroying their own brand. So they're starting to get pretty protective of that process as they should. They should just assume it's an apocalypse right now. You've got to start, barbarians are at the gate. We got to keep all AI generated long form books out of this thing, out of our deal because they're kind of lowering the value of what they do. So yeah, we take extraordinary links to make sure that we are the ones that we're creating real a real text written by actual humans.
It actually reminds me of kind of what happened and is still happening in just basic e-commerce for products on Amazon, right? You have, let's say, an American brand comes up with a pretty cool new idea, and they get it manufactured and they start selling it on Amazon because that's like the biggest channel. And as soon as they reach any level of success, the manufacturers in China or elsewhere knock it off and sell it for 20% of the price, and push that brand right out of the market. I've seen it happen a bunch of times. It still happens today, and if we're not careful, the same thing could happen with information products like books, right? Where people can easily take ideas, reword them, right? So it's not plagiarism, and then just publish them. And that, I mean, maybe lessons learned from Amazon on what happened with kind of retail products, and trying to get ahead of that with books now.
Yeah, it's that's the thing, is that would be, so for everybody else, that's definitely a problem. That is not a problem for BrightRay. And the reason is that BrightRay, we're not using those books, and that our focus is not selling 1 million books. Our focus is making a really good book and getting it in the hands of prospects for people, right? We're in the business of making, of condensed thesis, right? Because a book's perfect for kind of long form, complicated problems, right? To kind of describe the solutions, and getting those in the hands of the people that you're trying to do business with, or our clients are trying to do business with. So, now, will we sell a gazillion books? On some people, we do. Every once in a while, we'll have a hit. Especially, you can kind of see it a mile away. The title's just right. The thesis is just right. Like, we should push this to, like, I don't know. So we need to send a copy to 15% of all the writers of the New York Times today, right? They should all get the book the same day. Like, you see, it's going to work. But for the most part, that's not our worry. Like, even if Amazon went out of business tomorrow, they stopped publishing books tomorrow, that'd be awesome. Doesn't bother me at all, because that's not the primary place that we get our books out.
Interesting. So we've talked a lot about kind of sales and marketing, which are, and a little bit about software development, which are kind of obvious entry points to start deploying AI into a business. I guess a two-part question. One is there anywhere else in your business or businesses? And if not, are there areas where you're experimenting right now because you think in a little while, in 6-12 months, it will be? As an example, I started experimenting with front-end code generation like 2 years ago, and it wasn't there yet, but I kept checking. I kept checking in. Who are the new players? Does it work? Et cetera. And then one day it just started working. And so I'm wondering, other areas that you're using it today, or areas where you're experimenting because you expect to be able to use it soon.
Yeah, go check out Stitch. Google Stitch is really, really good at UI UX, like really good. And then you bolt that in, right, with how I don't know, whatever your flavor is. Let's just pretend it's anti-gravity, Google anti-gravity. And now you can only go, I really like these 10 sites, Stitch. Go make me a this front end with that front end, and it's really good. Like, I would hate to be in the UI UX business right now. You're probably freaking out a little bit. Now, the problem with that is that, the moment you come up with a new concept, it's going to get eaten up and plagiarized. No one will even know you existed because the AI will be so good at it. So yeah, that's a problem. Anyway, and I digress. But so we have these book campaigns that we do, these book release campaigns, right? And it's typically a very, very, very manual process. I mean, it is weeks worth of work, and it is really, really is hard, because you've got to read the book, right? You've got to then take thesis of the book. You got to go, okay, what reporters have ever written on this topic before, especially this particular angle, right? Now, is that reporter this way, that way, the other way? Am I just going to piss them off if I do this pitch, that pitch, the other pitch? There's a lot of thought process. There's like 1,300 reporters are in our database, right? That we kind of try to go after all the time. And it's hard, right? So you end up only really getting it out to like 12 people because it just takes forever, right?
Mhm.
I have in the last couple of weeks, I've been able to create agents that fly out like Valkyries and then they will read the whole book, whatever it is, right? And then we'll find 50 angles, and then we'll go try to match those angles up with the 1,200 reporters, the last 50 articles they read. That is thousands of hours of work if I was doing that manually. And now I'm able to do it in about 5 hours. 4 hours. It's still back and forth. There's still humans involved. It has to be involved because it gets it wrong a lot. It just does. But at the end of it, that what's generated is very, very, very valuable. And it's
Mhm.
the first time it's one of those things at the end of it, you're like, holy shit, this really works. Like really well. It's a really good pitch. It's a really good angle. It's a really good everything. We were trying to get a client on the Today Show the other day, and it found, one of the people had written or had a thing on it, literally watched the video, or it knew the video of this one thing they were pitching. It goes, oh yeah, this reporter did this 3 weeks ago. Let's do this angle. That's the producer you should go after. And they were right.
Mhm.
That is a very time-consuming process that we've now got down to probably a half a day. It was a month worth of work before.
So that's strategy, right? Previously, you would sit there maybe in a room with somebody else and say, okay, well, let's look at this reporter. I happen to read, something they wrote in the Washington Post or whatever, and so let's dig in and think about how we might approach this one person. And you
That's
could
right.
spend hours just on that one thing, and that's such a far deeper level of personalization than like kind of, outbound email, right?
It is, but now add that with the fact that I can no longer email those reporters. Add the fact that I then FedEx a book with that pitch
Mm,
to the reporter, and now
okay.
you can see where all the things are firing off at one time,
Mm-hmm. You got the
right?
book.
So a little bit of experience with some of these people, some of the producers, I can pick up a phone call and actually call or text, right? Say, hey, I just
Yeah.
sent you something. Yeah, go grab your FedEx package. It was delivered yesterday. Yeah, that way, and then literally pitch them on the phone with the thing in their hand, right? That has bonkers success rate. Whereas we're so busy clogging up the front door, we're going around. We're going to the side door. We're not going anywhere near the front door because emails suck. Now, will I follow up with an AI email? Yes, I will. Right? All right, did you get the book? Yeah, sure, right? But ultimately, the pitch on the front end is the real value for us anyway.
Yeah. Yeah. Are you seeing like, doing a lot of PR, right? And trying to get coverage of the books or get, TV appearances for your clients and all the rest of it. Are you seeing like significant changes in the way that they operate right now and how you engage with them? Like, are things happening on their side that are having as big of an impact as things that are happening on our side?
You mean the reporter side or
Yeah, like the
the
reporter side, the
producer side?
reporters.
Yeah, yeah. I think that they're, so a million years ago, back, 2,000 years ago before Christ as a child, right? Used to be able to do press releases, right?
Mhm.
And a press release was something called the PR news wire or the wire. What the wire was is basically if a reporter was slumming for a story that day, she could go look at the wire and go, okay, well, this is the thing, right? And then now everybody and their dog started clogging that channel to get a hold of reporters, right? And they went
Mhm.
through phone calls and emails. And then that's starting to get super clogged, like for all the reasons that we've talked about, for the last 30 minutes, and now so for instance, there is an email for the Today Show. And I believe it's like producer at, today.nbc.com or something like that, right? And I bet you couldn't get someone to read an email on that email if your life depended upon it. Because I bet
Mhm.
they're getting thousands every day, all AI, all automated, all perfect, all plausible, right? And when everybody's, super, no one is, right? So that channel is completely clogged. And now it goes back to your former point. It comes down to real, actual human interaction has to move that boulder up to physically get that thing on that show or whatever. Right.
Hmm.
So yeah, they're changing. I think they're going back to depending more on more than ever. Their producers are having to depend on their own gut because before everything looks special. Right. Think about it. Like, so you got 10 pitches a day. Right. And 2 of them are like, wow, that sounds awesome. And you do any research on it and it's bullcrap. Right. It's not real. Now you're stuck with the other 8. Now
Hmm.
imagine 1,000 of those who all sound perfectly plausible. Cure for
Hmm.
cancer and, to be stuck in a well and, I don't know, soccer fans, this, that, and the other, or whatever. It all looks plausible and most of it's not real, right? Now
Hmm.
you're no longer able to, your resources are just jammed all the time because you can't figure out the real from the, you've got to go do extra super duper backstory to make sure it's real. You can't put that on the news, right? Because it could be
Right.
complete bullshit because everything looks real.
Yeah. I mean, I'm seeing this in kind of recruiting and job placement and all the rest of it. Where I mean, it sounds to me like the reporters and the producers, they need their own tools to be able to sift through the sheer volume that they're getting to filter out the stuff that they should put people on to go research and make sure it's real. The same thing's happening with recruiters and employers right now. The volume of applications is through the roof. They're all either completely fake or partially made up, or it's just very problematic. And so now they don't have the resources, right, to sift through 1,000 applications when they used to get 100. So they actually need tools on their end to whittle that back down to a manageable number. So it's like at this point, like the AI is talking to the AI where the humans are like out here,
Right.
you know? And the incoming is AI and the filtering is AI, and we're seeing that like in a lot in a lot of places now where we have to like defend ourselves against the incoming AI slop that's becoming so problematic in a lot of different areas. And now I'm learning also in the news and in reporting.
Authenticity, like, that is the thing that kind of shines through all of that, right?
Yeah.
The human connection is absolutely real, and slop is scaled, right?
Yeah.
Real is not scaled at all. So how do you find the one real story in the 1,000 generated AI slop bullshit? It's easy to see, but maybe you need to have some type of like, I mean, I noticed that there's a couple of different services out there that they aggregate stories for reporters. And what they started doing is that if it detects a single sniff of AI, you're banned.
Mhm. You're out.
So now you're scared to death of submitting anything that's not completely written by hand. They'll
Yeah.
ban you. Literally, we got banned. So I had it was a story about some type of drug use problem, and I have a client that we were pitching for that, right? And I generated it and it goes, nope, you're done. I say it's AI. It banned us within like 30 minutes of us submitting it. I had to go back and beg and tell them we were never going to do it again to get their account turned back on. So there are ways to make that. Imagine if the Today Show said, no, if you submit a single iota of AI in your emails to us, we will block your whole domain, right, for you. And then now you're starting to get real, right? You're starting to get, because the consequences are so heavy and dire. Like for instance, Google, I don't know if you noticed, if you cheat in SEO, you're permanently banned.
Yeah. They wreck you.
Yeah, that's how they're fixing it. They're making the consequences forever, right?
Right.
And I think that is going to be another way of getting around. That's how you fix some of this stuff. You make it
Yeah.
to where the consequences are so dire they won't do it.
Where I went to college, we had an honor system. And if you cheated, if you plagiarized even a sentence, you were expelled from school forever. And so like, I could see how those with the power, right, could help enforce some of those, enforce the authenticity. Like the big platforms like the Googles. And so, I think with that, if there was a theme for today, which I love, it's authenticity. How are we as business leaders kind of addressing AI slop and not becoming part of the problem, but rather, breaking through the noise with an authentic message. And so to wrap it up, Scott, if people want to get in touch with you and learn more about, what you do, what would be the best way to get in touch?
BrightRay.com, BRIGHTRAY.com, or just look me up on Google. There's a million ways of getting a hold of me. And just type in my name into Google and you'll see there's 1,000 ways right there. It should pop right up there on the right.
Perfect. Well, once again, we had Scott Turman here, CEO of BrightRay Publishing. Thank you so much, Scott, for coming on.
Thank you for having me.